You don't burn out because you're working too hard. So many people think that the reason that they're burning out is because they're working too hard. But in my experience of working with dozens of people that are experiencing burnout or having all of the signs of burnout, is that simply just isn't the case. If you're feeling burnout, you may be feeling feelings of fatigue, lack of enthusiasm, feeling detached. You might be being cynical or pessimistic and finding yourself being unforgetful and just lacking motivation in general for life or whatever it is you're working towards. And this can be completely demoralizing, and I get it. I absolutely get it. I've had these feelings myself, and there's a few key things that I've realized. There's some patterns that I've noticed when I was experiencing this myself and with the dozens of people that I've worked with that have experienced this. Now, one of the first things I want you to understand is that any emotion, positive or negative, but particularly useful for the negative ones, is any emotion is simply a signal, and it's a signal to think or act differently. And it may well be the case that with burnout, the reason you're experiencing what you're experiencing is it's your body's way of trying to course correct you. It's trying to get you back on track. What I've realized when it comes to burnout is the reason that people are really burning out is not because they're working too hard. It's because they're not spending enough time doing the stuff that they love doing. If you're experiencing any of these feelings of burnout right now, ask yourself honestly, am I doing enough of the stuff that I love doing? Now you might be thinking, well, I'm not sure. I do love work, but even within work, there are certain things that you really love to do, there's things that give you energy, and there's things that drain energy from you. But we're going to come on to that in more detail in just a moment. What I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is how you can overcome those feelings of burnout, get back to feeling energized and optimistic and having a clear mind and feeling motivated, inspired, and feeling more energized in general, which I'm sure is something how you would much rather feel. So the first thing that we want to think about is what is the quality and quantity of the stuff that we love doing. How is that showing up for us in our life right now? If you were to just very simply get a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle and write down all of the things that you love doing, the things you love doing by yourself, the things that you love doing with others, and make this list and ask yourself honestly, how many of the things that I love doing are being done right now? And if they are being done, are they being done to the quality and the quantity of what you would desire to be doing in your life? Just even that one simple exercise alone, I'm sure you'll find that actually there's a big disconnect. One of the things that I talk about over and over and over again, and you'll hear me say in many of my videos, is about having a clear North Star. Your North Star is a mission in life. It's the equivalent of trying to empty the sea with a spoon. It's something that acts as your guiding light, is something you work towards every single day. And by working on that, you feel more fulfilled, you feel more energized. So if you haven't got a clear North Star, then that's one of the things that you can go and do straight away. Now, I'm not going to go into a North Star or how to create a North Star in detail in this video, but you'll be able to find the details of that video around this video here somewhere, so you can click through and go and watch it in due course. Another thing to consider when it comes to burnout or feeling feelings of burnt out is your values, knowing and understanding your values. I talk about two types of values. So we have what we call end values. Your end values are things you're moving towards or away from. So your end values are something that are typically feelings. So you want to feel more energy, you want to feel more freedom, or you want to move away from shame or fear. Your means values are the things that you do that give your life meaning. So my top 4 means values are self-mastery, building businesses, creating relationships and building wealth. And the majority of my day I spend doing these things and operating in my values. If you haven't done and got clear on your means values, one of the best ways that you could do it that I've come across is doing what's known as the DeMartini values determination process, which you can Google and you can find out more about. And then at some point in due course, because I don't think we've got one at the moment, have another video on the channel about exactly this. The reason knowing your values is so important is because of the distinction between inspiration and motivation. When you are living other people's values, you'll constantly require external motivation. I'll know if you're living someone else's values because you'll be using language like, I need to do this, I ought to do this, I should do this. That's an indication that you're living somebody else's values. That somebody else in your life could be an authority figure like a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle. It could be an old authority figure like a teacher or a boss, or it could indeed just be society. And the language you're using is so powerful. So if you find yourself using that language, consider the possibility you're living somebody else's values. However, when you're living your values, your means values, you'll use language like, I love to do this, I choose to do this, I desire to do this. And when you're living in your values, you'll be inspired, you'll be in inspiration. Inspiration, in spirit. What's another word for spirit? You're in your energy. So you'll have this torus field of energy. You can do these things for lengthy periods of time, and then you find yourself feeling just as energized as when you started it. Whereas when you're operating in somebody else's values, which we all need to do from time to time, but it's about the quantity of time that we're spending in each of these areas. So ask yourself honestly, right now, if you're feeling the feelings of feeling burnout, are you living in your values or are you living in somebody else's values? Is the language you're using language like, I'd love to be doing this, I choose to be doing this, I desire to be doing this? Or is the language you're using, I need to do this, I ought to do it, I should do it, I have to do it? So once we've established what your values are and that you're going to be operating, doing more of what it is that you would love to be doing, we need to think of some structure to enable that to be able to happen. And this is where time mastery comes in. The reason I call it time mastery is because time management doesn't exist. There's no such thing as time management. All that actually exists is priority management. Because you and I, we have the same 24 hours in any given day. We have the same 7 days in any given week. But what we are able to do with that time comes down to how efficient and how effective we are by the structures that we put in place. So when we're thinking about time mastery, we want to think about the 4 different time dimensions. So explaining from the outside in, we have the dimension of distraction. The dimension of distraction is when we're doing things that are not important and they're not urgent. This might be just doom scrolling on social media, for example. Then we have the dimension of delusion. This is when we're doing things that aren't important but are really urgent. So if you're running a business, this could be taking phone calls that you don't need to take, for example. This could be replying to emails that need to be replied but don't need to be replied by you. Then we have the dimension of demand. Now you'll know if you are spending a lot of time in the dimension of demand if you are someone that's highly stressed, because the dimension of demand is doing things that are really important and are really urgent. So they need to be done, they're important, and they need to be done straight away, which creates a lot of distress. This can show up in lots of things in life, but almost always the tasks in this area could be avoided by delegating sooner or planning and doing things further upstream. And then we have the dimension of fulfillment. This is the zone where really we want to be spending at least 60 to 70% of our time doing things that are really important to us, but they're not that urgent. So how do we go about doing that? Well, one of the things that you can do is create what I call a default diary. This is how you would see what your typical week would look like in an ideal world. So you block in key tasks that you want to do at any given time. Typically, there's 2 types of tasks. There's what we call a block task and a scheduled task. A block task is something that you would do, but it doesn't matter what time you're going to get it done. So if you decide that you're going to do an hour of exercise every day, but it doesn't have to be done at 6 a.m., then that hour gets put in your diary as block time task. You could have other tasks like doing emails, for example. It doesn't matter when the emails get done, but you want to get them done and they get done regularly. But then you have scheduled time tasks. Scheduled time tasks are typically tasks that have to happen at a particular time and typically will involve another person. That's why it has to be done at that time. So if, for example, if you were going to the gym and you commit to going with a partner and you were meeting at the gym every morning at 6 a.m, then it's not a block time task, it's a scheduled time task and you have to do it at that particular time. If you run a business and you have a team meeting, for example, on a Monday morning at 9 a.m, that's a scheduled time task. It has to happen at that time, because if you just decide not to turn up and turn up later in the afternoon, then your whole team are going to be waiting for you. What the default diary enables you to do is see what your week could look like. You get to block in the things that you would love to do, whatever they might be. It might be having time with the kids, picking them up. It might be going for a walk or seeing friends or playing particular sport, but you get to start to see what this week would look like. And the great thing is you get to decide what this week is. And the default diary is simply there as a template.
I'm going to be sending a free copy of my book, North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset and Live a Life You Love, to someone that comments on this video. And if you're loving this video, then hit like and subscribe to get more.
It isn't something something you need to do over and over again. I personally will update my default diary pretty much every 6 to 12 months just to get a bit of a gauge of other things that I want to introduce in, and then I look at structuring my actual diary around what I would like this to look like. So the default diary is great for putting in the specific tasks that happen regularly, but what about the ad hoc tasks, the things that just come up every now and then? Well, that's where you introduce what I call a must-do list. So a must-do list is not a to-do list. So first of all, you have types of people that have lots of tasks, lots of things they need to do, and they keep them all in their head. Now the issue with this is your mind is a bit like a computer. If you have lots of tabs open or lots of applications running, what happens to the computer eventually? It crashes. So we want to get all of the things out of our mind and put them into one area, one space. I personally like to use a very, very simple Google document. Some people use Trello boards or something like Asana, but I like to keep it really, really simple and just use a Google document. Now it's important that you use a digital document and you don't write it down for one reason, which is if you lose the document, you're in a bit of a situation. Two is that if the way that I'm going to explain how you do this in a moment, you'll see that you'll waste so much time rewriting it every day. So we have one document where we brain dump every single task to keep our mind free. That way we're not using the bandwidth of our mind just trying to remember tasks. Now the other group of people that I sometimes come across is people go, yes Will, I have lists, I keep lists, I have lots of lists, I have lists for work, lists for the kids, lists for the partner, lists for what I like to do outside of work. Now the issue with that is as soon as you have multiple lists, I know that you're overwhelmed, because how do you prioritize what gets done? Because you could have a list of 5 different things from 1 to 15, but you've now got 5 things all at number 1, so which are you doing first? Whereas with a must-do list, everything goes on one list, but you have them broken down into subsections. So you might have future tasks, which is where I recommend you keep all of your tasks to start. Then you have another subsection which is called week ahead tasks. What you do at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week, if you're planning for the week ahead, is you take tasks from the future tasks and you move them into the week ahead tasks. Then each day you choose to take tasks from the week ahead tasks and move them to today's top priorities. Now this works well for a number of reasons. One of them is you've got everything in one place, you free your mind, you give yourself that bandwidth. Number 2 is you can now identify what success looks like. If you have one massive long list, we all do the same thing. You try and get through the list as quickly as possible. You want to make the list look as short as possible. So you do the quick things and the easy things, not the things that are really going to move the needle. When you've got the week ahead task, you can just pick things off that you want to take up and do that day. So you get to the end of the day, you've crossed off everything on your today's top priorities, you get a nice big dopamine hit. You feel good. So you do that on a Monday, you do the same on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You get to the end of the week, you had 5 dopamine hits, but you get an even bigger dopamine hit at the end of the week because you've also completed your week ahead tasks. What this does is it enables you to, over time, work out what your capacity is, how you do these tasks aligned with your default diary, and you become far more efficient, far more effective, but you feel so much more accomplished whilst you're working through it. So that's some of the practical things you can do around time mastery. But what about giving yourself space so that you're not really overworking? One of those things that you can do is introducing a process called the Pomodoro technique. So the Pomodoro technique comes from the old kitchen timers that were the tomato timers that you would set for 25 minutes, for example. And what you would do with the Pomodoro timer is you would run it for 25 minutes, then you have a 5-minute break. This is what we're looking to do when we're working on our tasks. You might do 25 minutes of tasks with a 5-minute break, or 50 minutes of task with a 10-minute break. You're giving yourself time to breathe. You're giving that time to reset, to set a new intention for what it is that you're going to be doing next. Why are these gaps so important? Why are these breaks so important? Well, there's a wonderful saying, which is music without the silence between the notes would just be white noise. And that's what we're looking to do here. We want to create music. We want to make life feel good. And that's why these gaps, these spaces in between what it is that we're doing are so important to re-energize, recharge, and take on the next task. So one of the other things I want you to consider when you're thinking about overcoming the feelings of burnout is what I call the foundations. So the foundations are what everything else is built upon. And if you get these wrong, then it can have a huge negative impact regardless of anything else you're looking to do. So number 1 is, what's your diet like? Are you fueling your body in a way that is going to enable you to thrive? If not, maybe you need to make some changes. Number 2 is, are you moving your body enough? Whether that's getting out and going for a walk or doing some form of exercise, Are you moving your body in a way that's going to fire the endorphins and get you feeling better as a result? Number 3 is sleep. Are you getting enough quality sleep at night? Whether it's long enough sleep or quality sleep, then if not, then maybe there's some changes that need to be made there. And finally, what are you doing as a form of mindfulness practice? Whether that's having some silence time, or whether that's doing some form of meditation, some time for you for self-reflection, it might be journaling or whatever else. If you have these 4 principles in place as the foundations, then you'll find that a lot of these other things become a lot easier. Regardless of how you're feeling right now, one of the key things that I want you to think about is that you can evolve your thinking. How your situation is right now is not how it has to continue to be. But ultimately, any change comes as a result of you thinking differently or acting differently. Sometimes both, as this may be the case in your instance right now. One of the other ways that you can really ensure that you're thriving and you're moving forward is having some form of active accountability. Have someone that you could share how you're feeling, and importantly, tell them what it is you're going to be doing differently so they can hold your feet to the fire to help you move forward.
Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, hit like, hit subscribe, and please also leave a comment about what it is that you like. I'm going to be picking one of the comments and sending you a free copy of my book, North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset and Live a Life You Love, so make sure you get that comment in.